As an editor, I know just how scary those keyframe velocity charts look, and that's why in this video I'll show you what all those lines and handles actually mean and do. First, let me start with the why. You might ask yourself, why would I need to mess with those scary charts when I can just leave the keyframes alone? Well, the answer is pretty simple. The same animation with edited velocity will almost always look better than the one with base keyframes. Here's a simple animation with base keyframes, and here's the same animation but with the keyframes adjusted. See the difference? That's exactly why you should learn what those charts do. But before you do that, I've got to introduce you to some theory. When using keyframes, you're essentially telling the software to change a value over time, with everything in the middle being a transition between the value set at the starting point and the one set at the ending point. By default, this transition is linear, which means the value will change an even amount throughout every single frame to reach the endpoint. Now that you know how keyframes work, here's where the speed graph comes into action. You can edit the speed at which the value gets changed with every frame. For example, in this animation, the graph is slowly rising at the beginning and surges up towards the end. As a result, the position value of our object gets changed very slightly early on, and then starts to aggressively change the closer we get to the end of the animation. Let's start off with a simple 1920 by 1080 composition at 30 frames per second. Grab the ellipse tool and while holding shift, drag it on a preview window. This should give you an even circle. Now, using the scale tool, just make the circle smaller, and with the align tool, align it to the middle. Then place it around the left corner of the video. Go to the shape layer and add the echo effect to it, and copy these settings if you want to have the exact same outcome as me. Go to the first frame of the animation and place a keyframe on the position value. Now go over to the first second and change the position so that the ball is somewhere near the right edge. And now we have a linear animation. To view and edit the speed graph, you're gonna select both keyframes and go to the graph editor. As you can see, the graph is a straight line, which means the value gets changed an even amount with every frame. If your graph doesn't look like this, it's because you have the value graph open. To change that, right-click and press Edit Speed Graph. The quickest way to change the graph from being linear is to go back to the timeline, select both keyframes and press F9 on your keyboard. And now, if you go back to the graph editor, you'll notice that the graph is curved. If you press play, you'll notice that the position gets changed in a different tempo. At the beginning and end of the animation, the position gets changed only slightly, but in the few middle frames, the position gets changed abruptly. Now, if you zoom in on the graph, you'll notice that at the beginning, the speed at which the position gets changed is somewhere around 0. However, in the middle, it goes up to around 2500 pixels per second. And then as it's coming to an end, the speed at which the position is changed lowers down to around 0. Now, to edit this, you're gonna select the graph and two handles will pop up. If you click and drag one of these handles, you'll notice that the graph gets curved towards the direction you're pulling the handle. You'll also notice that the animation speed gets changed accordingly. So as you can see here, the speed gets changed very quickly at the beginning and then slows down towards the end. Where the graph is high, the speed at which the position gets changed is also high, and vice versa. And now that you know how to edit the speed graph, you can go ahead and play around with it to feel things out. To show you a practical example of using the graph editor to improve an animation, I'll use one of my recent Coca-Cola animations. Here's the animation without edited keyframe velocity. And here's the same animation with the keyframes tweaked. Looks better, right? By the way, you can get the project file of this Coca-Cola animation for free if you go to the link in the description. I hope this video has helped you understand the speed graph, and if it did, I'd appreciate it if you left a like on this video. Make sure to also comment what you want to see next on my channel.